I'm curious to know how you guys, how your teams are keeping track of one another, checking in on each other's well-being, and is that something that is actually part of the senior leadership dialogue? Is that something that's designed into the way your companies communicate?
So I'll take the question first.
Sure.
Obviously, the CEO sets the tone, right? And we still use email, and we're very clear in our emails about what's important for the company, and it's always about the employee first, right? We want our colleagues to know that above all, your needs, your individual needs, your family needs, come almost before everything else, right? You've got to make sure that things are okay for you, that you are safe, your family is safe. You have recourse, you have your manager to turn to, and we empower managers to be flexible, to be adaptive, to be responsive to their colleagues' needs, right?
Dinesh, do you have anything to share on this topic of how your teams are checking in with one another and how you're keeping in touch?
So I think this year the topic of well-being became a priority, and it was cascaded from top down. So there was, so HR really, saw the need for it. There were there was a lot of concern from the countries, from global teams, from regional teams, and local teams as well. There were colleagues who were, raising up, and we've always had very open platforms. So there were pulse surveys that were being done to check in on people's, workload, their mindsets, their well-being, even their sales and all as well, to be able to assess how they were doing. And so the topic of well-being started to come up more and more, and so a whole program behind it was created. So it did show very clearly that, from top down, well-being was something that management was looking at, and it was cascaded down to line managers, in regions and in countries as well.
And John, what about over at GHL? I know that, unfortunately, I'm probably more familiar firsthand with some of the stresses that. So there's all kinds of stress upon stress for the teams, for your teams and the guys that you work with. I'm curious to hear how you guys are coping and how you guys are keeping tabs on how they're doing.
I guess I would agree with everyone, Miguel. The daily check-in would be part of our operating rhythm at GHL. I'm lucky in a way because I have been going to the office since December of last year, so that's daily. And majority of my team is in the office as well for operations, especially the warehousing side. But for those that are still working from home, obviously we've created so many chat groups. Here in the Philippines, what's big is Viber. So similar to WhatsApp, so Viber is pretty big here, both internally and externally. So there's a daily check-in when it comes to all those chat groups.
So that's pretty much. I think we've talked quite a bit about internal communications. I'm curious to know about external communications now. So if I could just hear first from Javed and talk about how Asia. I mean, on top of everything, you're also communicating a completely different business approach, right?
Right. Yeah. So for us, obviously, we got two components of our communication / marketing, which is something that's very close to Tony's heart. There is the social media channels of engaging, communicating with our customers. So the platforms that we use are all the social media platforms fundamentally. And then there's Tony Fernandez. Our balloon that we send up in the sky is Tony Fernandez. So we have these two channels, social media and Tony. And Tony can be on the news, in press, in print press, or on the social channels, and talking about products. When we're talking about products and driving revenue, it's Tony Fernandez. When we talk about services, quality, and our safety, which has been the big message that we want to talk about, that comes to me. And the various professional people that we have, whether it be pilots or engineers or scientists, they get wheeled out to talk about their specialities. And we use those subject matters in that sense. And that can be on social media, can be in these sorts of forums, can be on LinkedIn particularly, that we heavily use, or it can be in the press as well.